And I now hand it over to the moderator of the session.
Thanks a lot for this opportunity. And pulses are very important for two reasons. One is that we Indians, we love our dal, right? And it comes in, India is the only country which you'll find that we consume our dal in so many ways, right? Down south, we are having sambar. In north, we are having chana dal, yellow dal. In eastern India, when we go to Gujarat, we are having tuar dal made with sugar. So we love our pulses. And pulses is also like, used in multiple things, like, when we talk about besan. Now, luckily, besan is also of a very different types. Previously, the besan used to be only of desi chickpeas. Now we are having besan coming from Russian Kabuli. We are having besan coming from yellow peas. We are having different type of besans also. Second, which is very important part, is that India is predominantly vegetarian country. 70% of Indian either don't consume meat or they consume once in a while. So we are not a country which eats, or 70% of country doesn't eat non-vegetarian food daily. So pulses provide us the most important proteins, amino acids, which are very critical for the growth of human beings. And that is also one of the reasons, because of various factors, when the pulses price goes up, you start finding that the nutrition security of the country is compromised. India is also having a lion's share when it comes to the production of pulses. We produce close to 25% of pulses. Consumption, we are as high as 30% of the global pulses production. Actually, that's what India consume. And now, in past 1.5 years, we have seen that actually from where we were slowly going down on the import side, suddenly we are seeing jump, and this year, 33% of the pulses consumed in India were imported. Another very important aspect about India and pulses is that some of the pulses we consume, for example, pigeon pea, actually India is the only consumer. And then origins are also limited. Either it comes from Eastern Africa or it comes from Southeast Asia, predominantly from Myanmar. When we talk about chickpeas, when India opens chickpeas import, the global market actually shakes up. When we put a restriction, global market shakes up. So that's where I'm saying that India is very important player when it comes to pulses. And I'm having very esteemed panel with me. We are having an analyst. We are having two people who trade in a different manner, right? With the control on different type of origins in pulses segment. And then we are having someone who is having very close eye on what happening in the domestic markets, because he sees majority, or I'll say that a lion's share of pulses which enters India, right? I'll say blesses them to ensure that they are off the port in India. So I would start with, Hiten bhai, with you only. We would like to understand the domestic scenario. And I had opportunity of traveling in some of the key ports where generally we import pulses. Mundra, there is no space to keep, right? Similarly, Bombay, there is no hardly any space, and there are the prices of storage has gone up. Now, we would like to understand from you, how do you see dynamics? And we will focus our discussion on three key pulses: pigeon pea, chickpeas, and lentils. Your initial comments, Hiten bhai.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Deepak bhai. Firstly, thank you for this opportunity. So how you put it is absolutely right. In a nutshell, you said that there's a big logistic problem currently happening in India from the pulses point of view. You didn't add yellow peas to that thing, but I'll still say yellow peas has taken a huge amount of space in most of the major ports, that is Mundra and Hazira. And that's one of the reasons why you don't have space for the incoming cargoes of chickpeas right now. It's big trouble right now for logistics handlers like us, because you have limited space. If there is space, then you have problem with laborers, or you have problems with transport. So coming back to pigeon peas, yes, this season, I think beginning in July itself, people were expecting huge crop in India and everything. So most of the East African country exporters wanted their cargo to come as soon as possible. And by this logic, you have, I think if I've be roughly from 1st of July till 30th of November, I can be sure that about 9 to 10 lakh tons of only pigeon peas has come to India. maybe about 1.5 will be Myanmar, and rest will be East African countries, technically. So that's the amount of trade that has happened. And if generally, at a market when it is going at a steady pace, all of this comes in a span of 6-8 months. But this has happened like 4 months, and they've technically dumped everything. Either it is a fear of exporters, or the importers thinking that the earlier my cargo comes, it gets liquidated. But that's a problem that everybody faced. How much early your cargo came, it was not in line with the market rates. Market were falling because of the sentiments, and it was very difficult for anybody to get exit. And that's same thing happened with, that same thing is supposed to happen or might happen in chickpeas, some people are expecting. And a big driver of that is yellow peas, because since the time yellow peas extension or extensions have kept happening, there is no support at the bottom level. There is no resistance. The market technically is at a free fall. And I always keep saying, whether it is any kind of market, at a bearish market, it's like a falling knife. Nobody is ready to catch it. So that's a problem that every trader is facing today. And by that, all cargoes coming in, there is logistics nightmare for handlers, transport point of view, labor point of view, space point of view. I think this year, only from the Mumbai side, anybody who's got space anywhere, he just kept it. You have cargoes going to Nhava Sheva to even 50 kilometers away from there, and people are ready to keep the cargo because the cargo is here and it's not getting offloaded or is not being sold. So yes, a lot of cargo has gone to warehouses, and then spaces are becoming a problem. So I think now when the bottoms are there, that's what I feel, that once the lifting starts and with some Tamil Nadu government tender coming, buying has happened, at least there is some current of buying, and because of that, some offtake is happening. Yellow peas, people are expecting some relief, not major relief, but some relief maybe. So if that happens, then maybe yes, the capacity that we have will suffice of whatever import that is happening, because I feel not huge imports coming in probably Jan, Feb, March.
No, perfectly, we are having a little bit of challenge on our hand, and one of the reasons was actually we are having challenges in the productivity. So Ankush, I would like to come to you. Olam does a lot of on-ground studies and understand what's happening because type of positions you take. I would like to understand actually the previous PGNP crop, the Kharif crop, PS in the sense the Kharif crop, because now in the Rabi we start saying Kharif is previous, and on the chickpeas part of it. There are so many different type of data. So one understanding from you, what do you see the production, which has already happened in PGNP, and what do you expect, going forward? I know it is early time, but the sowing data is there. You might be having some understanding of what's on the ground, not just the government data. And I would also like you to touch upon the point that is a data problem in India.
Hello. Thank you, 𝐏𝐸𝐺, for inviting me on this panel. And I believe data is a very, very big issue. And so, since you have pointed specifically on data, but I would say data assurance, infrastructure, and derivatives. These are the 4 key issues in India, or I would say in the Pulse's global perspective. But since the question is specifically pertaining to data, so let me talk more on the data perspective. So, today, if you look at the acreage which has been shared by the government websites or by the government states, right? So there the biggest challenge is that the acreages and the yield which is leading to a production is sometimes, I would say, is not really complementing or matching with the field numbers. So when we really see the production actually converting into the ground, that versus the number which is coming from the productivity plus acreage shown by the government, we see some variances there. And that variance eventually lead to a big of the gap or a trading data gap, leading which most of the trading companies, whether it's a miller, whether it's a trader, whether it's a farmer, whether it's a consumer, that eventually got trapped. So, or that these people get trapped. So I think India needs to work more and more finer to get into a better data, which I believe with the new technology like remote sensing, we are trying to get better and more realistic acreages. We are also trying to achieve the better productivity or closer to the actual productivity probably in the next 3 to 5 years. So we can definitely see the efforts getting into those directions. But I think that's an area wherein definitely we as a country need to work more closer and arrive at real numbers. Pertaining to the pigeon peas crop, earlier there was looking at the weather when we started the sowing in June or July. So sowing was exceptionally well. So farmer has rewarded the sowing by showing the better sowing numbers because of the prices which they sow. The price which they sow was more than at least 30 to 40% above the MSP, and that was really encouraging for a farmer to sow pigeon peas. So that job was done beautifully by the farmers. Then it was left on the seeds variety, left on the climate, which is not really being controlled. It's a very uncontrollable variable. That also played a very major role, and now I believe we still are expecting a better crop this year as compared to the last year. If last year the crop was 3.5 million ton, when I say if, because everyone has their own numbers. So let's say if 3.5 million ton was the last year number, then this year definitely it should be more than 15 to 20% higher than the last year. So which could be 4.2 million ton in case of pigeon peas. May not be 50% higher, but at least 15 to 20% higher for sure. In case of chickpeas, it seems that everywhere we are getting the sowing numbers. We believe that the sowing, again since at the sowing time, which was in October, the chickpeas prices was very encouraging for the farmer. The rainfall was good. So in the non-irrigating land, I would say lesser rain-fed areas, farmer will definitely support to sow chickpeas. So I believe the locations like Rajasthan or in some part of MP, whether it is Kabuli or desi chickpeas, farmers must have increased their sowing numbers, which is also being reflected in the government data. So we believe that this year we should see a better sowing number as compared to last year. Then again, one of the major variable, which is the productivity, is still unknown because we still have another 3 to 4 months to go. So we need to see how the weather plays out. If that plays out good, then potentially we will be having a good year in terms of chickpeas. Otherwise, we believe at this point in time, the sowing is well appreciated by the farmer and they have been trying to increase the numbers wherever they can. So that's the overall take in case of chickpeas and pigeon peas.
Perfect, very well articulated. And as you rightly said, actually, like, whenever somebody gives a number, we have to have a context of what the number was last year for him, right? And that is a very important part of it. So I'll just share about our perspective. Like, we also do a little bit of understanding on the ground. And me and my team do travel extensively, right? Some of you are connected on LinkedIn. Or you might be seeing that actually, like, I'm in the middle of these type of conferences, and then the next day I'm actually sitting with some farmer in some field. Our number for, as you rightly said, for pigeon pea is better than last year, for sure. Last year our number was 2.7 million metric ton. This year we are something around 2.9 to 3 million metric ton, that is. So we are looking at 2.5 million ton of additional crop. But with a caveat that actually our own demand estimated, though unfortunately that in last demand estimation was done in 2012, and after that we just use simple calculation of more population multiply by that. Even if we go by that, actually our requirement is 4 million metric ton. So this year also, we were thinking if the crop is great, we might not have to rely too much on imports. But this year we'll have to rely a lot on Myanmar, we'll have to rely a lot on Africa. I'm not sure this year Africa would help us, right? With the type of prices they have got, right? Will their farmers be interested there to sow more pigeon pea this year? That would be a multi-million-dollar question. But Sanjeev, the question to you, ETG has been the largest giant when it comes to Africa, right? Africa, understand Africa very well. And then same way, you are multi-origin and multi-destination player like Olam. I would like to understand your perspective, specifically when we talk about chickpeas, and I think you were in Australia also for understanding what's happening in lentil and chickpeas. So your perspective on lentil and chickpeas, what do you see, how great is the crop, and are we seeing any red flag coming from either Canada or from Australia for these two specific crops?
Hi everybody, thank you Deepakji for inviting. I'll start with the red lentils one. If you see the situation in red lentils in India, the consumption is around 2 to 2.2, whereas our production is 1.2. So deliberately we want or not, we have to import almost 40 to 45% of the crop. And the major origins are obviously to Canada and Australia. But if we see relatively to last year, the Canadian production has gone up from 1.1 to say around 1.4 million tons. This is after excluding the seed, feed and waste there. Whereas in Australia, it had been a roller coaster ride. I mean, when we were visiting, we heard numbers of 0.7 million ton, and we rushed, every traders rushed there when we saw fields on one side, it was full of frost and the yield was basically, maybe the farmers are doubting of having yields of more than 0.3, 0.4, whereas their average yield is around 1.5 to 2. So all the things went on, and then came a good spell of rains, and now the figures have again went up to 1.1. So see, Australia, it has came down from 1.5 last year to 1.1, whereas at the same time, Canada has moved up from 1.1 to 1.4. And these two are the major origins, if we just keep back the Black Sea ones. So I think on a global S&D perspective, the picture looks pretty same. As of now, the Indian sowing figures are maybe slightly improved to the tune of 3 to 4%. So that is that all these things, three things combined together, I think the scenario will remain pretty stable, what it was last year. And I don't see much of a fluctuation, but yes, two important factors which have crept in this time, much more, I'll say enthusiastically as compared to other years, is one is the logistical issues. We are seeing a lot of logistical issues, especially the containers. As and when the issues come up, the prices jump up by more than $30, $40. And you know, from the destination point of view, whenever you have cargo coming in only in vessels, so you have got spikes. But those spikes are always kept under control when the container arrivals are, regular, which is not happening. So that is one factor. And secondly, we have seen the currency depreciation. We have seen last week INR depreciated. Yesterday, both AUD and CAD depreciated a lot. So these all factors will continue. But I think lentils will fairly be in the same place where it was last year, and the range would be maybe plus 20, minus $20, but it will continue to be the same unless and until we see a major deviation in the India crop, maybe weather issues, maybe sowing issues, which would be clear maybe another 20 days or so, at least the sowing part. And then later we are expecting a very harsh winter this time, so we might see some frost damage and all, which might whether it will lead to yield effect or whether it will lead to production effect, that needs to be seen. But as of now, standing at this point of time, we don't see a much deviation in the lentil scenario this year.
How about chickpeas? You were in Australia. How is the crop of chickpeas shaping
Again,
there?
the beautiful part of, as you tell, the data of Australia is it can very easily go from 1.5 to 2.5 and then again from 1.5. And the market reacts as such. So chickpeas, initially everybody was of the opinion that 1.5 would be the 1.5 million would be the production figure, but then suddenly figures of 2.5 came, and then there were some, again, weather aberrations. So I think 1.7 to 1.9 would be the perfect figure for that. And I think the base has gone when it touched 650 to the Indian ports. And the prices as of now, 680 to 700 looks good. But then again, it will depend whether the farmers in Australia are actually hoping that the import gets extended. So then things will change. But as of now, I think these prices should remain at this level. We might see a little bit jump because Bangladesh has missed the bus. So they will come buying because of the Ramadan demand. They thought the prices will go down and they've not bought. So that might be the only factor. Otherwise, prices looks to be bottom up.
Perfect. A very interesting aspect of, pulses is that I was talking to one of the advisor to the government, and I was talking about the data being provided by India. By the way, many of you would, if you try to go to egg market from outside of India, it is forbidden. You cannot access the mandi arrivals and all that out from outside India. So I was asking why our data, they said actually some of the developed countries, so-called developed countries, Canada and Australia, don't you think they are manipulating data? So I see jury is out whether actually this up and down is the creation of some specific agency which cover from the government aspect or actually the reality. But as you rightly said, when you were saying 0.7 million metric ton for lentils, that's true. In fact, I was talking to a few people on ground in Australia, and they quoted even 0.5, right?
And Deepakji, I'll say they were not wrong, because at that time,
Exactly.
the fields, because I was also on a tour at that time, the fields were looking so bad that maybe plus minus 10-20% is fine, but it was actually looking bad. But nobody expected that another spell of rains and the crop will improve by so much. So you see what you said, I mean, the fluctuation in data, maybe it is because of the weather pattern or something, is much more, deviating in Australia as compared to Canada. Canada StatPlus data is almost to the point. I've not seen this. So maybe this will evolve because this huge production in Australia pulses is a story of last 5 years, not more than that. So maybe it will evolve, I feel so. But yes, the weather was a factor.
No, see, actually, what I'm saying that we Indians, we love conspiracy theories, right?
Yes.
So that's perfectly fine. Coming to you, Tanmay now because we have touched upon lentils, I'll again also share a data point which we believe, based on what we are seeing so far, very early days for lentils, we are seeing the crop to be as good or as bad to be last year. Last year our number was 1.2 for India. So we believe like, to be close to that only. In chickpeas, we see slight improvement, right? Currently, we cannot predict what's going to happen on the weather part of it, right? It's too early days. But we have seen that the acreage has increased. But when you compare acreage increase versus, right, yield increase, we believe it would be just a marginal change because germination issues, I myself have witnessed, there are germination issue. And there might be possibility of like, replantation it also. And again, one of the ex-companies I've worked with, AgriWatch, Tanmay is like, is a seasoned hand there, keeps a very sharp eye on what's happening in the pulses market, and very astute analyst. Now, sir, we have understood trader ka kya hai, what kya soch rahe hain ye, because they would be thinking, I'm not saying you, generally trader thinks like, agar maal hai, तो बोले तेजी आएगी और माल नहीं है तो बोले मंदी आएगी. So that's a common part of it. Now I would like to understand from you, right, how do you see these three commodities shaping up, and any insight about like, if you have any understanding of what the government thought process could be on some of possible extensions, whether YP is one, chickpea is one. My personal view is that 31st March, please make everything in OGL and control only through duty. 15,000 crore has been wiped off in just 1 year in pulses business. If we continue this knee-jerk reaction policy, you would not have too many importers left to import the pulses. And we have seen some of the structured players, they have actually moved away from pulses business. There are a handful of them, and made a large size importer, they have become like cheetahs. You'll have to protect them. Your views on that, sir?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, GrainsWorld, for giving this opportunity. And I'm coming to the questions which Deepak sir has asked. सबसे पहले मैं ये बताना चाहूँगा कि दीपक जी जब भी मुझसे सवाल करते हैं तो मेरे को एक ऐसे असमंजस में डाल देते हैं जहाँ से निकल के आना बहुत मुश्किल होता है मेरे लिए. So coming to your questions, जैसा सर अभी अंकुश जी has rightly said, and you also mentioned that this time chana acreage has improving, and according to the government numbers, the chana acreage is almost 2.5 lakh hectares above the last year's. This is as per the government numbers. What we are finding from the fields, there is some deviation this time in chana acreage. So, though the prices were very lucrative for farmers this year, despite there has been some shift to other crops because of very high return, crops like in wheat, and few other crops are also there like maize. So there has been some shift in central India and partly in southern India. So what we are expecting at AgriWatch, the chana acreage will be more or less at par or maybe slightly higher to the last year. And regarding to the yields, तो yield is मतलब इसमें हम ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि yield is kind of thing कि it is highly dependent on weather, how the weather shapes moving ahead. And recently we have witnessed in November and December, the temperature was above normal. And this is a very critical stage for any rabi crop, because at this point of time, the crop is in early germination to early vegetative stage. And at this point of time, temperature plays a very vital role. I think during the inaugural session also, Pasha ji has rightly mentioned about the temperature variation, and Suresh Prabhu sir has also highlighted this point. So during the few critical stages of the crop, this temperature plays a vital role. And we have also witnessed, and we have also found that there has been some issues regarding the germination of the crop. germination rate is comparatively less for chana compared to the previous years, or we can say from the normals also. So yes, now the temperature has starting improving and the winter has now gradually setting up. So we can expect like moving ahead, we may have a good yield scenario for chana crop. And coming to the lentils part, the lentils acreage this year, we are anticipating that it would be more or less at par with the last year's only. Maybe a slight increase of 1 or 2% will be there, but it may remain more or less at par with the last year's. So far, the crop is shaping very well, and we feel like that this year also, if everything or the weather will remain favorable moving ahead during the Feb-March period, or we can say Jan to March period, so we may have a decent yield for lentils also, and the crop will be over 1,000,000 tons. Right.
Excellent. That's a very pretty decent number. So if we can see if Mr. Sohail has joined on Zoom. Okay, fair enough. So he was in Singapore. He was supposed to join on Zoom, but he's not there. Now, briefly, 2-minute intervention. In case the government is sitting in front of you, right? What would be your ask? We'll start with Tinbhai, with you. And please be blunt, right? You know, I don't like sugar-coated things.
You already said, no, if I have crop, then I'll think about myself.
Fair enough, that's fine.
No, but in all fairness, I mean, I think, no, in all commodities right now.
वो मैं moderate कर दूंगा अगर आप इधर-उधर गए तो, क्योंकि मेरे पास ना लेता हूँ ना बेचता हूँ.
Right. No, so in all fairness, all the commodities right now, agri-pulses commodities are at a fair low level. Consumer is already happy. The only issue earlier was in retail prices, which I think, you know, after your intervention and your telling government that you have to focus your rage there. So that is also under control. So maybe it's time to make a trader and farmers happy now. Try to do something which will help at least support the prices and get the market moving. Because right now market has been very stagnant, and government has all kind of tools. I mean, when they want to get the prices down, they put stock limits. They ask you to come hard at you, and you have to sell the price at this. And so right now, maybe they can look at buying something, or at least not extend some certain commodities which were supposed to be only till June and then happened till October and now till December. So if at least some support from government comes, then it'll be better, because the market needs to move. I mean, forget wherever it is. People have lost money, I agree, but the liquidity needs to come in the system so that it starts making again.
So in a nutshell, what he's saying that don't do salami slicing, chop it off in single shot. to you, Ankush, your views, in case government is sitting in front of you, what is your ask?
So I would say that assurance to farmer is what my ask would be, and that farmer would be Indian farmer as well as overseas farmer. So if a farmer is spending his life to grow a seed and try to produce a crop, whether it is a Canadian farmer or an African farmer or an Indian farmer or an Australian farmer, he needs a security, he needs an assurance whether I'll be able to market my product or not. So as let's say, Deepak, you have mentioned and it is mentioned that in case of yellow peas, there was no assurance. In case of chickpeas, there is no assurance. In case of pigeon peas, there was an assurance. There was an assurance that India allowed the imports of pigeon peas up till 2025 and 2026, which eventually helped the African farmers and the Myanmar farmers to keep on producing it, which eventually helped us in looking at the imports this year consistently, which eventually controlled the prices. But in case of, when it's come to chickpeas or when it comes to yellow peas, there is no consistency. I think Government of India needs to be very, very assured in terms of setting up a policy which is long-term policy, which could be India trade favorable, unfavorable, but it should be farmer friendly. That would be my ask.
Perfect. I'll cover all the points a bit later. Your views and with perspective of, I'll say that what he said, farmer everywhere is farmer.
No, I also somehow come to the same point. There are two parts, I will say. See, whenever we compare the prices in India, we are somehow, our benchmark remains the MSP, and our target is farmer sentiments as well as the inflation. So I think the first two parts, the prices which are hovering right now, if we make benchmark the MSP at some point of time at some angle, so that is being taken care of. The inflation is taken care of. Now the only thing that needs to be taken care is the farmer's interest and the trade's interest in that. Because if trade goes on, the farmer will be engaged anywhere, and then obviously it will be empowered in that. So I think the sweet balance needs to be taken care of. I think the first 2 points are taken care now, and it's just we are at the juncture where the third point also needs to be taken care.
Perfect. Tanmay your views, because you have been part of advising the policy makers. कुछ अंदर की खबर दीजिए सर.
सर अंदर की खबर कुछ भी नहीं है, सारी खबर सबके पास रहती है सर, इसमें इसलिए अंदर वाली कोई बात ही नहीं है इसमें. वेल सर, मेरे को ये समझ में आता है कि एक सस्टेनेबिलिटी होने के लिए किसी भी चीज़ के लिए, या तो अगर आपको फार्मर को बेनिफिट करना है या कंज्यूमर को बेनिफिट करना है, तो कंज्यूमर तब भी बेनिफिट होगा जब वो फार्मर बेनिफिटेड होगा. इसमें फार्मर अगर ग्रो करता है किसी चीज़ को, तो वो कंज्यूमर उसका बेनिफिट उसको उठा सकता है. जो हम प्राइस स्टेबलाइजेशन की बात करते हैं, तो प्राइस स्टेबलाइजेशन भी तभी आएगा व्हेन वी आर हैविंग गुड अमाउंट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. हमारे यहाँ इंडिया में प्रॉब्लम जो मेरे को समझ में आती है कि एक जो क्रॉपिंग जो पैटर्न है, जो हम ऑस्ट्रेलिया में देख सकते हैं, कनाडा में देख सकते हैं, कि वहाँ के लोगों के पास में एक फिक्स है कि अगर वो चना लगा रहे हैं या पीस लगा रहे हैं या लेंटिल्स लगा रहे हैं, तो दे आर ग्रोइंग इन अ लार्ज वे. बट इन इंडिया देर इज़ सडन शिफ्ट इन क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न. आज जैसे एक छोटा सा मैं एग्जांपल लेता हूँ, आई बिलीव कि वो आने वाले सेशंस में भी वो डिस्कशन में होगा, कि ग्रेन्स की बात करें, मेज़, कॉर्न, आज इथेनॉल की वजह से मेज़ में किसानों का शिफ्ट जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया इसमें. तो ऐसे में क्या होता है कि हमारे पास जो कल्टिवेबल लैंड है या अरेबल लैंड्स हैं, ये एक लिमिटेड लैंड्स है. हम अर्बनाइजेशन की तरफ भी जा रहे हैं, हमें ये भी देखना पड़ेगा. तो गवर्नमेंट शुड कम आउट विथ द पॉलिसी टू इन्हांस द यील्ड ऑफ द क्रॉप्स बाय इंट्रोड्यूसिंग द हाई यील्डिंग वेराइटीज़ एंड शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन वेराइटीज़, एंड विच विल बी आई वुड से कि वो वेदर रेसिलिएंट भी होनी चाहिए वेराइटीज़, सो दैट कि जो हम वेदर चेंज का एक बात कर रहे हैं कि ग्लोबल वार्मिंग का एक सिनेरियो चल रहा है हर जगह पर. ग्लोबल वार्मिंग इज़ एवरीवेयर नाउ, एंड इट इज़ अफेक्टिंग द क्रॉप्स अराउंड द ग्लोब. सो इसका जो एक इम्पैक्ट होगा, तो उसके लिए हमें हमारे रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट्स को एक वेदर रेसिलिएंट वेराइटीज़ वगैरह डेवलप करने की ज़रूरत है. एंड बाय डूइंग दिस ओनली आई फील कि हमें एक वो जो सस्टेनेबिलिटी की बात होती है, हम वो सस्टेनेबल हो सकेंगे, हमारा एक प्रोडक्शन अच्छा हो सकेगा, और उससे बोथ फार्मर्स एंड कंज्यूमर बोथ विल बी बेनिफिटेड सर.
Sure. So, as a concluding remark, definitely I don't give you chance to rebut, right? I'm having the last say, being a moderator. So, first thing, when yellow peas were opened, I was the only person who has been tooth and nail opposing it at every possible forum. And that time the trade was happy, right? There is opportunity to get more trade done. Today, 70 rupees was the price, December 2023. Farmer today is getting 32 rupees. It was anti-farmer, and now do you think actually farmer next time will be going yellow peas for Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? So I believe it's paramount that it's fine. You can have duty structures to ensure that the food availability is there. But at the same time, sir, I'll ask, can you raise hand that how many of you know that actually your data cost has increased substantially in last 4 months? Can you raise your 1%? लेकिन अगर the day there is 3 rupees increase in तुअर दाल, थाली से गायब हुई दाल, दाल में लगी आग. We consume 6 kg on average family, right, of dal. Even if it increased by 5 rupees, 6 into 5, so 30 rupees a month. 4 glass चाय भी नहीं मिलती है. So even as the consumers, we have to understand, we have to support our farmers. I believe even if to pay a little bit more, that is fine. But to protect this sector and ensure the food and nutrition security of India, and to remove the stunting and wasting, which is a big problem in Indian kids, we need to support the pulses sector. And to support pulses sector, we need to support the ecosystem players like you. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you as a panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, esteemed panelists, and thank you to the moderator for making this discussion very interesting and very enthralling. May I invite on stage Mr. Ashwini Bakshi, CEO ICFA, to kindly do us the honors of presenting a memento to the esteemed panelists and as a token of our appreciation and thanks. Here's a green memento to all of you. We thank Mr. Ankush Jain, our thanks to Mr. Hiten Kataria, our thanks to Mr. Prasenjit Goral, our thanks to Mr. Tanmay Kumar Deepak,
Guys, इतने बोले हैं, इतनी एनर्जी यूज किए, क्लैप तो कीजिए.
and of course, special thanks to the esteemed moderator. Rightly put, sir, the one and only Mr. Deepak Parekh, for steering this discussion. May I request you all to please join us front and center for a photo op. May I request Mr. Bakshi to please stay back for the photo op. So our sincere thanks to all the panelists once again. We quickly move on after the changeover to panel discussion 2, Policies and Regulations in Agriculture.